Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and I am joined this week. My very special guest is Stride and AAPW star Jay Spade. Jay, really appreciate you coming on the show this week.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
So my first question that I have for all my wrestling guests is, were you a fan of wrestling growing up, and what is it that attracted you to becoming a fan of pro wrestling growing up?
So I can remember switching back and forth. I might have been maybe 8 or something. This was around the WCW, WWF times. And I would watch it here and there, but I was never, it never clicked. It was just like, oh, that's cool. This bald head guy's coming up and beating his boss. It's awesome.
Right.
But it never really kind of clicked. I was in 6th grade at the time, and I could hear a couple guys talking about wrestling. And I guess they did it on their trampoline or something.
Right.
So I talked to them about it, and then we went over there, and then from there, we would just write the shows, and we would wrestle on this trampoline, and then kind of from there, it just I heard about this place that was going to be in my town that I was in, and then we kind of wrestled for that, even though we weren't trained or anything, and kind of just took off from there. But kind of the love for it just started out of seeing what these guys were doing.
Okay.
And then that's when I really kind of started watching. And that's when I really started to notice, okay, hey, these guys are doing these kind of moves. That's cool. I like that. So that's kind of where it went.
How old were you when you said 6th grade? 6th grade when you started the trampoline wrestling?
Yeah.
How old were you when you started wrestling for this promotion?
So probably 16. I could drive.
Okay.
So it was around 16. Like I said, we still weren't even trained yet. We did we did a show for them. They put tag belts on us.
Really?
Oh yeah. But I mean, I don't know how much of this podcast is okay to talk about.
Oh, you can say whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Well, we didn't know wrestling was all left-handed, so we went in doing all this right-handed stuff, and these 2 guys that were there were like, hey, wrestling's all left-handed, and then they showed us some things, but I didn't get trained until about a couple of years later when I went to a company who was IWA Productions.
Okay, well, let's we'll segue into that. What made you realize, with you're doing your wrestling, from the trampoline to, getting booked, becoming tag champions in this promotion. First, do you mind me asking, elaborating a little bit more on the promotion if you feel comfortable with it, or what promotion was that just kind of started booking you despite being untrained?
So they were out of Anna, and they're not a thing anymore. But it was called HCW.
Okay.
That's what it was called. And the promoter there, his name was Will, and fast forward a little bit, some of the guys that I talked to now that I'm friends with now did some work for that same guy.
Gotcha.
And so, but they don't. Yeah, but it's not a thing anymore. But yeah, it was HCW. It was out of Anna.
So what made you want to finally seek out, I guess you would call it formal training, and what made you want to go to the school that you decided to go train at?
So that's a good question. So when you're doing this sort of thing, you're just in it. You don't really know. You haven't seen anything about it. But I remember going to and watching an AAPW show.
Okay.
I believe it was in West Frankfort. And I'm watching these guys, and I'm looking around, and it was me and my dad. And I look at my dad, and I go, how come this is totally different than what we do? And what different I mean is in professional. Like, the ring was a tall ring. We had this short little, 2-foot ring at the time.
Right.
For HCW, it was a it was a big ring. They had guardrails. They had these managers. They had, I mean, these big guys that weren't wearing T-shirts to wrestle with. It was just a total different thing. And so, to me, you know, being probably I was 18, maybe 19, roughly.
Okay.
Uh, roughly, like when I'm seeing that, I was 19. It was probably 18, 17, 18. Seeing that, I was like, I really want to wrestle for this promotion.
Really?
So,
So
so
you were driven to get more trained by AAPW more so than WWE or Japan or TNA, Ring of Honor. It was AAPW that kind of was your. Would that be fair to say that was more your driving force?
100%, 100%. Um, it it's insane. I guess you could call it, you know, like a child's mind or something like that. But when I first saw the AAPW show, I was like, I'll do anything to wrestle for it. Like this is where I want to wrestle. Which, like I said, might be something weird. You know,
No, nothing
but,
wrong with that. I mean,
um,
he had a very very similar story to being driven by AAPW, which is it goes back to something that was when I originally started this project. It started out just me talking to AAPW guys because I want to relive the impact all these people made on me. So I guess it just proves that it made an impact on more than just me in its existence.
it did, and like I said, there wasn't. You know, it was for me, it was just the guys. You know, like the characters, and I was starting to kind of tell. Like I can tell a lot more now, but I could tell back then, like who was good, wasn't, and it wasn't a sloppy show. You know, these were like Shane Rich, this is Homicidal Stephen Davis, Carnage. You know, like Axel Wirt, like those guys. Sean Schultz did a couple of the shows and stuff like that. And they brought like a TNA guy in at the time. Like, you see these guys, and you're just like, man, this is kind of like what I see on TV.
Right.
That's kind of what, I felt it was more approachable.
Right.
In a sense.
So you find AAPW, and you eventually find the IWA Productions. Was that be through AAPW, or did you find IWA Productions on your own? Take me through your school choice. Like,
Sure. So what I did is I kind of hovered a little bit after the show, and I went up to a guy who I saw there. I believe might have been Homicidal Stephen Davis, which I don't know if you remember him or not.
oh, I remember Homicidal Stephen Davis
Yeah.
very well.
He's pretty intimidating.
Yes, he
He's
is.
pretty intimidating to come up to. So I had to get basically the balls to come up and say, hey, I wrestle, which at that time I really wouldn't call it that. Hey, like, I would like to be part of the show. And he goes, okay, well, you're going to have to talk to this guy. And then so I think I went and talked to a guy named Sean, because he was the promoter.
Gotcha.
Sean went and told me to go talk to a guy named John. And so John was doing the music and stuff for IWA or for AAPW. But he was the one that was doing the shows for IWA Productions in Albany.
Right.
So he was like, hey, there's a guy who rides down there, Curly. He lives around your same area. What we'll do is there's a show. I believe he said AAPW had like another show coming up. So I got in there because he just wanted to see what I could do, if I could even do anything.
Right.
And so he got me in there, and we did a couple things, like headlocks or arm ringers or something. And John's exact words were like, well, I can tell you've had a little bit of training, which honestly most of my training was just watching it, and that was it, So what he did is he told me, he said, hey, we have a show. It was a New Year's Eve show, I believe, in Albany. And
right.
He goes, we'll put you on the show. So, you're all excited. You drive there. Then they tell you that you're not going to be on the show. You're going to be in this battle royal. Oh, and by the way, you're going to be under this mask. So, so I did that, and then afterwards he said, "Hey, if we do training here. If you want to ride up, we do shows on Wednesdays, training on Fridays. You can talk to Curly. He's over there." And then so I started going up on Wednesdays, and then I would pay Curly like $10 on Wednesday, $10 on Friday, and we'd go up there and we'd go and train. And the two people that trained me that had the most in it were Josh Totten and Homicidal Stephen Davis. Those were
Um,
the two guys that trained me. Now Brandon Walker came up and he had a hand in it as well, but I really narrowed it down to two. It was Jay and Josh, 100%.
um, so I've had a lot of guests here in the past that have gone through the Stride School and been trained by Heath Hatton, and I always like asking them what Heath's like as a trainer. This is the first time I really get, with the exception of Livewire, really get to ask what was it like at that time to have Stephen Davis as a trainer.
So, man, so he's so intimidating. But once you get to know him, he's the nicest guy. He's the coolest guy. He's super patient. Um, but Jay and Josh, they're different in certain ways. Josh is very technical about how he trains. Your foot needs to be here. Your arm needs to move this way and stuff. Jay was really good at psychology and knowing where to put certain moves and just the way that he moved in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just I don't know how to explain it. If you watch Jay wrestle and you watch me wrestle, you might see some of the same mannerisms because I picked up on so much of the stuff that he was doing because it was so good. Um, but that's what me and Tyler try to teach because I help on Tuesdays with
Right.
training.
Okay.
So we try to kind of do that same thing. Just Tyler teaches a one way and I teach another way, so it's kind of a good back and forth thing.
Okay. Um, so how long were you training? First of all, whenever you before I forget to ask this, whenever you were doing the wrestling out of Anna, were you called Jay Spade then, or was that something that came around later on after your training at IWA Productions?
No, I started as Jay Spade then. Um, I think I changed my name. We started doing these backyard shows, which are I know they're looked down upon now, but a bunch of wrestlers kind of started in that sense. Not how it used to be. Now you can kind of go anywhere and train.
Right.
But before there was only so many places, and they charged, $3,600, all these sort of things. But no, it started before then. When I was in HCW, it was Jay Spade.
Gotcha. Um, so how long did you train with Stephen Davis and everybody at that school before you finally got to make your debut at AAPW or just in the area?
So it's funny. Um, when I first got there, Josh wanted to look at me. He wanted to see what I could do. So me and someone else, I can't remember who it was, kind of worked like a little mini match. Now, I had no idea what I was doing. So, we're just doing all these stupid moves, crazy moves. Well, Josh, and I can see it now, but like Josh saw something that was different. He didn't really, they taught me a lot of psychology, and Jay was really good about footwork and stuff, but they really didn't have to teach me a lot. I already knew how to bump really well.
Okay.
When it came down to doing moves and sort of thing, I'm really good at watching and then doing it. So I was probably there for, I never really stopped going until I stopped going to Alney on Wednesdays, to be honest. I wasn't technically, I should have probably been what they call like a green shirt. They had different tier shirts. Green shirt, and then they had a red shirt, and then a black shirt. I got a black shirt. and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was good enough to where I was still way above their guy starting out,
Gotcha.
which is which is horrible, but which I guess good. But uh, I was there, like I said, for maybe a year or so. It really wasn't. I mean, I was having matches on Wednesdays, and then I just started kind of progressing, and I worked a lot with Stephen Davis too, and then that started progressing. I worked with Walker, uh, but it wasn't until a couple years after that. This was maybe 2000,
2000 when?
maybe 2012 or so.
Oh, okay.
Uh, Hang on one sec. Okay, sorry.
You're good.
Roughly around in there, but what it came down to is Sean at the time, which is the guy who booked for AAPW. He always booked big guys. He didn't ever book little guys.
Right.
So when I sent him a message about maybe wrestling for them, and I had Jay and Josh behind me, like, hey, this kid's good, like he's local. What about booking him? Sean's, first thing that he said was, well, he could probably ref if he wants to. And then it kind of, I was like, okay, well, that sucks,
Right.
But it was just Sean's way of book. He's an old school booker, so he would book, these big kind of guys. But it got to where me and Sean ended up. He had me in, and he had me work him. And once I worked him, he booked me after that.
Okay. Do you remember?
Because then he kind of knew.
So you wrestle Sean. What is? I've had Sean on the show before. Great guy.
Yeah.
What is it like? What was it like working Sean? And what was it like from your perspective, where you want to get into AAPW so bad, and now you're like, well, here's the boss man. Like, what was the pressure like, and what was the match itself like? What was it like for you? Essentially being like, well, here it is. You know what I mean?
Gosh, nerve wracking. I remember being just ridiculously nervous. Because when you said, because I think about all that stuff too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he's the the booker, the promoter, and this is what I've been wanting, and here it is. So it was a squash match, so it wasn't. We were out there maybe 3 minutes or so. It wasn't really anything. And Sean's old school in the way where he doesn't like to plan a whole bunch of stuff. So we really didn't have anything. He just, once he got out there and once he was doing some stuff, and he was able to see me sell and make him look even bigger and even meaner than what he was, like, he was like, okay, all right, I like this. And so that's kind of, but it was super intimidating. Super intimidating.
So from there, you get a spot on AAPW. What are some of the other memorable matches that you had in that time period for AAPW that maybe stick out to you personally?
Well, so this is early on before we had like the TV stuff. Let's see, I know I wrestled Sean. I wrestled. I know I wrestled Homicidal Stephen Davis one time. But a lot of Sean's shows, he'd do them every 5-6 months or something like that.
Right.
And then this is when I started. I think Tyler started maybe a month or so after me, somewhere around in there. But
Okay.
it was starting. It was kind of starting to wind down after that. So I remember. I think I got a match out of Jay. Homicidal, and then Carnage was one. And honestly, I can't really remember a whole bunch other ones. I think I had one against Eric Wayne.
Okay. So you're pretty well new to the promotion. it's starting to wind down, and then lo and behold, a gentleman by the name of Chris Hagstrom comes in, and
Hmm.
he has connections to WSIL TV here in the area,
Uh huh.
and he's going to put AAPW on TV.
Yeah.
Take me through what that's like for you as a young guy, just, still trying to find your footing in your career and in this promotion, then being told, hey, you're going to get to be seen by anybody who wants to see you in Southern Illinois, Southeast Missouri.
Um, well, it didn't hit me until I actually saw myself on TV, and then had people message me and text me and or see me at Walmart. Like that's when it was really, because when you go into it, I mean, it's basically, it's just like any other show. The guys are still in the back having fun. There's a camera. We did the first taping at the SIU building.
Right, I was there. Yes.
Yeah, one of their places. And so, like, you have a hard camera, that you want to work, which is your main camera, and then you have kind of your floater, a couple floater ones. But I wrestled Axe, that first one. So, like, that to me, like, Axe is so easy to work with, and he's so good. And then again, it's like the weirdest, what do you call it, full circle moment, because I would watch Axe and Gaylord come out in AAPW, and Gaylord's yelling at my dad, and I'm yelling at Gaylord, and then here I am, fast forward for AAPW, and we're doing a TV taping, and I'm wrestling Axe. So that was, looking back on it now, that's insane. But so it didn't really hit me, I guess. I thought it was cool, but then again, like, it's local TV, how much do these people watch? And it was awesome. It
Uh,
was so cool to be like, hey, I did TV, you know?
you have any memories of just like how different it was? I mean, you mentioned the hard cam, but like, is there any more like memories of how different it was adjusting to, hey, here's a building in West Frankfort or a building in Marion or a building in Mount Vernon that we're just doing a show in, compared to here's Sports Blast or
Hmm.
SIU taping studio or Black Diamond where here's a camera and here's an announce booth. Like, how does that change how you work a match as a professional wrestler?
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but from the start, typically if it's kind of like a non-TV match or something, and there's not a lot of matches on the card, you don't want to go, obviously you don't want to go an hour, you don't want to wrestle for an hour, but you don't really have like a set time limit.
Right.
So when it comes to TV, you have X amount of time, and that X amount of time is from when your music hits. It's not from the bell when the bell rings. So you may have 5 minutes, but you just wasted three of that walking to the ring. So that's a little bit of it there. Also, though, working that hard camera, that's a whole nother thing, because how you pin, how you grab someone, everything should be facing towards the hard camera. Plus, like, all the crowd for the most part is sectioned off on one side. So, you're trying to work them as well in both areas. There's not like a whole lot difference. You just have to be more aware of kind of what's going on. Um,
Gotcha. Um, I know kind of off camera we talked about using this as an ending point, but I feel like we could still elaborate a little further. Um, so you get TV, you're solidifying yourself as a roster member.
mhm.
And to me, and I've said it in the past on my podcast, one of my a show that I enjoyed attending and going to as much as WrestleMania 35 and All In and the Royal Rumble 2012 happens in AAPW main event, and it's
Yeah.
as a fan, I've elaborated that it feels like you're rewarded for being loyal to this company and
Hmm.
seeing what a spectacle they were able to pull off. And you were part of the show. You actually came and hung out with us in our area and came and talked to us for a minute where we were. So I always
Really?
appreciate that. Yeah, there was a match going on. And you're like, hey, you guys look like you're having fun. You mind if I watch with you? I'm like, yeah, cool. And we're just
That's awesome.
chilling there in the balcony. And then you have a match, and then you're involved in doing a run-in in probably one of the matches that was one of the big featured matches, at least to the locals, not to the people who traveled to see El Generico and Pac and
Right.
Colt Cabana, but to the local folks, you were part of the Mike Masters versus Kevin Hunsberger match. What was it like to be a part of that show, and what was it like to be featured in kind of a big spot, at least, again, to our local fan base?
Oh man. So that was going to be, that was our big kind of our home run show. And being a part of it, throughout, and I think I might have taken, I don't remember if that was my last show, one of the last shows with them or something like that, but it was what was like a four-way or something with some of the bigger guys, so we got to do that. But just being around that many people, I'd never wrestled in front of that many people before, and these were fans from all over, because they came from a place just to see Pac and Generico, work, and being in the back and knowing, these guys, did this, and they were on, ROH, which would have been one of the shows which I would have liked to have been on. That was one of the fewer times I've ever been around somebody like that close. Which they were the super coolest guys. Funny story. So Generico in the back, when him and Pac are talking out their match, normally, like, you might sit down across from someone and you're kind of like, hey, what do you want to do? You kind of hash it out a little bit. Generico was literally, he was like, he drank 16 cups of coffee. He was just walking. He was just in, like, pacing, just back and forth, like, just running, basically. He's like, well, maybe I do this, and, like, maybe I do that, and just walking back and forth. And it was the craziest thing in the world. But just to be part of that, looking back on it now, that it was such a huge show because we had Cabana as well. I think we had Matt Cross,
Right.
I believe. Just to be part of it was awesome. Like I said, the whole AAPW thing, to be part of that was awesome. It's one of those things you're not ever going to forget. It's kind of like, I'm skipping way ahead, but our Stride show that we had for Dan Summers at the Harley-Davidson
Right.
building.
That was a special night. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, that, right there, I mean, back to the same building, that we did those tapings in, and, here it is. But that show was just such a great show. And at that point, like, we had all been doing our tapings and stuff, so we were all family, and it was just such a fun night. It's hard to put it into words.
I feel a little bad for asking this, but as big of a night as that was, and as cool as it was to get to do a run in on a featured match, unfortunately, things didn't go according to plan with that run in exactly.
No.
And I gotta ask, just from your perspective, like what happened with the chair shot that just busted Mike open that badly?
So what had happened is, they let me know what they were gonna do. So we get ready to run out there, and I'm talking to Mike about it, and I'm like, all right, well, I was like, well, put your hand up, because that's 9 times out of 10 what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? You're supposed to put your hand up. Well, he didn't put his hand up, and so the lip of it went back behind his head and then caught him, like, in the back of his head. And then that's kind of like what busted him open. So we get to the back, and I come running in there, and I go, Mike, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, man, it's cool. It's no big deal. Because that's the way Mike is. And then I look over, and his mom is just glaring at me.
Oh.
And then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go. Like, she was so mad. But, like, Mike was like, hey, it happens. It's fine. Like, don't worry about it. But yeah, I thought he was gonna put his hand up. He didn't, and I caught him with, like, the lip of the chair. Because it's one of those things where, in front of all those people, like, I can't pull it. I got
Right.
to really just lay it in, and boy, I did, and it got busted open.
Um, I know you said you're on a little bit of a time crunch, so we're definitely going to bring you
Yeah,
back sooner rather than later, I hope.
yeah,
But last few things I really wanted to get to before our time's up today.
sure.
You know, I've mentioned with the other AAPW guests we've had, we have in January what I feel is like the
All
big
right.
reward of
Mm-hmm.
AAPW and being a fan, and the show's good, talent's great, but unfortunately, later on, by I believe it was November of that year, AAPW runs
Mm-hmm.
its last show.
Right.
Had several different people. I've had Sean on here, had Shane Rich with their perspective on why it closed down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were a little closer to the situation. As a talent, how did it feel, and what was going through your head when you're just like, "Wow, this is over"?
Uh, I mean, I think had it had it like had it just stopped, I think it would probably been a little bit worse. But we kind of like saw it coming a little bit, like how stuff was being booked, and it was they were just pouring money into it, and then just the way that they were booking more towards like I want to be a fan than they were like what made sense, and which I know me and Tyler talk about it all the time, but that we kind of saw it coming, so it wasn't much of a surprise. And I know Chris put a whole bunch of money, almost everything he had, into it, and it just wasn't working. And so it sucked because that was the only thing that we had like around here at the time. And if we wanted to go and wrestle or something, it was going to be in Albany or it was going to be um, Evansville or wherever it was, but
Right.
it wasn't going to be anywhere close. So that was probably the more upsetting part, was that we weren't going to have anything, close by.
Um, where there's a lot more we got to talk about, and if we can ever get you back for a part two and maybe a part three, we'll
Yeah,
we'll, we'll definitely elaborate a little bit further. But the one thing I wanted to get to is
yeah.
I've compiled 12 names here
Okay.
to do a word association, and I just want to mention a name,
Oh
and I
man.
want and I want you just to say whatever pops into your head uh, whenever I mention that name.
All right.
All
Okay.
right,
All right.
all right. First one is Mike Masters.
Tough.
Tough. Paul Rose.
Funny.
Axe Allwork.
Um, very light.
Keith Hatton.
Uh, smart.
Gaylord Stevens.
Then again, just hilarious. He just gets it.
Stephen Davis.
Um, I I can't. I don't have one word for that guy.
You can say multiple words if you want to with all
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, you
Well,
can.
just he's amazing. One of the best workers I've ever seen ever.
Okay. Live Wire McGuire.
Um, energy, charisma, arm drag. Let's say that.
Shane
His arm
Rich.
drags were so good.
Absolutely.
Shane Rich.
Shane Rich is next.
He was my first one that I really saw do any kind of really cool stuff. Just big. He's a big guy.
Sean Chambers.
Um, I can't say anything bad about Sean either. Uh, just thankful that he gave me a chance.
Brandon Walker.
Underrated, so underrated. He's so good.
Kevin Hunsberger.
A very good friend.
Chris Hagstrom.
Another very good friend, and a
Awesome.
Cubs fan, which I'm all right with.
Okay. Well, Just have to agree to disagree on that one.
All right, well that's fair. That's
All
fair.
right, all right.
Uh,
Well, I know, kind of got you with the, and kind of like I said, a bit of a time crunch, but I really appreciate you sharing stories of your journey to AAPW. I know your career is still
yeah.
ongoing. I know there's still stuff that happened after that and beyond. I'd like to cover with you if you're
Oh
willing to
yeah.
come. If you're willing to do one of these again sometime, I'd love to have you back. Talk about
Absolutely.
collision, stride, you as a
Hmm.
trainer, everything that's
Hmm.
going on now. I'd love to have you back if you're willing to come back.
That would be awesome, man. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. That'd be great. Like like you said, dive in kind of with the stride stuff and what we're doing now and going forward, kind of thing. That'd be great.
Do you have if there for anybody that may want to look you up, do you have any social media you'd like to plug for them?
I do. I mean, I'm just on Facebook. It's under Jason Chapman,
Okay.
um, and then you can find my Instagram off there as well. But yeah, I mean, I will add you if you're not weird.
All
So
right.
just send it if you want.
All right. Well, appreciate Jay Spade for being on the show, and thank you everyone for having to listen. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of
Thank you.
comic books, gaming, anime, and all things geek culture. You can follow me on my social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeekA9, Twitter athletic_geekA9, Instagram athleticgeekA9, and if you would like to help improve the channel financially, hit me up on Instagram or hit me up on Patreon, at patreon.com/athleticgeekA9. Add Jay Spade. Check him out. He's really, really underrated talent, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.